Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod with Bretton. He is founder and CEO at Culture Gene. He's also the author of multiple books on your culture, how to define, embed, and manage your company culture, and Culture Decks Decoded. He's also an investor and a bunch of other things, which we're going to discuss about today. This podcast is brought to you by my podcasting agency. It's called podpire.com. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcast or monetize podcasting, you can go to podpire.com or just Google Charles Cormier. Bretton, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Charles, great to be here. Thanks very much. As you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Culture Gene. We help companies define and embed and manage either hybrid or remote work cultures. So we're very much focused on post-pandemic, the challenges around flexible working. As you said, I'm a part-time angel investor. I'm very lucky to have married my wife, and I've got two kids who are 4 and 6 and who are adding to my gray hair.
What do you have to say about the culture at OpenAI and the recent events that happened over the weekend?
Well, if 550 people threaten to resign, you get a pretty good idea that Sam and that leadership team built a pretty strong culture. There are a lot of people who like them and like what they've done and how they've done it. The fallout from what the board's done, we'll see. I expect. I mean, actually, the winner here is Satya Nadella and Microsoft. He's in 48 hours pulled a rabbit out of the hat and probably covered his investment to 49% of the company. So very impressive.
Right. And what do you see as a problem in 2023 when it comes to startups and the culture that they create or try to create?
So the main problem is that startups used to not have to worry too much about culture because they were in an office, and the osmosis and the physical proximity allowed the culture to develop naturally. Now that we're in a hybrid, flexible, remote work environment, startup founders have to work harder to build that culture, but ultimately they don't know how. Nobody's taught. Most people don't know how to be intentional about developing a culture. I think that's the biggest challenge for startups.
I've tried to create a culture. I literally let go of most of my team. I don't believe much in basic humans anymore, which is anyone that takes a 9-to-5 salary. I do believe in partners, co-founders, and high-level people that can outpace my level of output nowadays. I've tried the culture stuff, but I feel it's like investing in something futile that just doesn't scale because the 9-to-5 model won't pursue. What do you think about that drastic opinion?
If you're building a startup and you want 9-to-5, you're in the wrong place. It's pointless. I think you should go back to wherever you were working before and enjoy that easy lifestyle. Startup requires extra energy, extra time, extra dedication. I think that if you look at any company that's scaled successfully, it requires the fundamentals of a strong culture. So once you're starting to get scale and you're going beyond 20, 50, 70, 100 people, if you aren't investing in the culture, you as the CEO can't be as effective. You're not going to spend time with a lot of people. And that means that you need to invest in defining what it means to work in your environment.
And what does it mean to work in a startup environment, and how can you make yourself different from other startups? Because if we take OpenAI, I mean, it's a huge mission for humanity, and I'm a strong believer in that. Tesla and SpaceX are that way too. It's just a huge mission, and you're working on groundbreaking stuff. Then obviously the salary needs to be there, and then the peers that you're surrounded with, they're also very smart. So you combine these three things, and to me, you have probably 80% of a strong culture, what would be the missing ingredients here?
I think that 80% is actually enough in a way in the early stages of a business. But what's missing is if you don't describe what your culture is and what it means through your values and the behaviors and your mission and vision, or you don't actively demonstrate what it means, consciously show people what it means, then you get disruptive behaviors or disruptive teams that don't work in the way you want them to work. And so that's really the missing link, I think, is being very, Musk is very clear about his culture. You're going to work hard. I'm going to pay you well. You're going to be the best at what you do. You are going to find ways to save money and innovate. And you're probably going to have one of the best, most challenging jobs of your life. And that's the culture. And that's absolutely fine. Whereas a charity wouldn't say that. A charity would say, we're here to help the people, work 9 to 5. And if that's your culture, if that's where you want to be, that's where you must go.
Right. Nowadays, as a CEO, what's your day-to-day like? What are your priorities?
So I've got a distributed team. So most days, not every day, but most days we'll have a stand-up, talk about what's going to happen for that day. I want to know what outcomes are expected that day and that week. So I believe in outcomes-based management, where I don't really care who does what, when they do it, where they do it. I just want the outcome to be delivered that we've agreed. What I do with younger, inexperienced teams is I work out what tasks they don't have experience in, and that means I may have to mentor, or we may have to coach or train them to get up to speed. And so the rest of my day, most of my morning is thinking, writing, responding to emails, and then my afternoons are calls. So I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of calls with potential partners, and most of my client calls are afternoons as well, if I can make it that way.
So what are top habits that you recently adopted that have been game-changing in your productivity as a CEO?
Sleeping more, which I didn't do much. I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, so they got in the way of sleep. But now that they're a little older, I'm getting more sleep, and I'm doing it intentionally. I've also, when I wake up for whatever reason during sleep, I struggle to get back to sleep. So if I play a podcast very quietly, I go back to sleep. This is a new game changer for me, because I can sit and think, and my brain gets into crazy, thinking processes, and I don't break it. The other thing I've started doing is journaling at the end of I haven't done it before, but at the end of the day, I'll just write down what I did, what I learned, what I need to do tomorrow. And this is giving me a much better structure and focus.
Right. And as your career, as a CEO and the long career and the founder career that you had, what challenges have you commonly faced, and how did you resolve these?
Recruiting has always been a challenge. I've got better and better at it. And I was a recruiter for a period of time. So you'd have thought that I could do a better job of it. But I'm always working on recruiting good people. I think my other big challenge is that I've not been good at asking for advice and help, or giving. As the CEO, you often take everything on your shoulders and you are responsible for everything. And I took too much on my shoulders. I took responsibility for too much. And now more recently, I've been delegating more and allowing people to make mistakes ultimately. And that's been good both for them and for me. But really challenges around me, and maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, a little bit of too much responsibility.
And that imposter, how do you bring it back in its box?
that little animal keeps bouncing out of its box all the time, annoyingly. So I've got a bunch of books that I've read around leaders who have struggled with various elements of business, and so I've got some pages that I've marked that if I really am in a bit of a hole, things aren't going well with that deal, or something's not going right, I'll open one of my books and I'll go, oh, okay. So Ricardo Semler, for example, he wrote Maverick and a couple of other books. You know, he had some really difficult times when his father passed away and he's taking over the business, but he just completely changed the business and radically renewed the business. And so just reading about how other CEOs have done it often pulls me out and just goes, remember, you're human and they were human too.
When the going gets hard, like, what do you revolve on? Do you just go stoic about these things? Do you focus your energy elsewhere and just ignore the demons nagging you?
So it depends. If it's a deal, or if it's something that I can change, then I become like a dog with a bone. I grind and I grind and I grinded it. If it's something that's going on in my head about me, then I can get into a, you know, if I allow those negative thoughts to spiral, I can get into a bit of a dark place. But luckily I work from home and I can go to my wife and she can remind me of the fact that I have done some cool stuff in my life, and that I will do some more cool stuff in my life.
Very cool. What do you have in terms of review for 2023? What have been your main lessons for this year?
So I've launched this new business, and it's a hybrid management training program, and I initially launched it into the HRDs, the chief people officers, and I realized that was the wrong. They understood the problem, but it wasn't their problem. And then I realized the problem was at the manager, the manager problem. And I think my big learning from 2023 has been to give myself a little bit more patience, to allow the iterative process of product market fit to happen. I get impatient, and I'm known to be impatient. So the learning for me is really, you can't, if you build a product that there clearly is a need, you can't rush finding that product market fit. You've got to go through the process. So that's really been the big one for me this year.
And what will you predict in terms of trends and forces for 2024 in this economic climate?
Wow, Charles, that's a tough question. If I knew the answer to that, I don't know. I don't see it getting better because of Ukraine, Israel, etc., etc. I don't see it getting better, but I do see good businesses, you know, good fundamentals are going to continue to grow, are going to continue to succeed. I think the macro environment will get tighter and tighter. There will be knock-on effects of that. But for me, I think the opportunity is in positioning. So one of the areas we're positioning in is defense, not the defense forces per se, but actually the service providers to defense companies and to the defense department. So that's how we're kind of adapting. We're trying to position ourselves with some of what we're doing into areas where we see growth and where we see opportunity. In other areas, we're just going, I hope it doesn't get any worse, but it probably will.
Right. You have talked with many founders and CEOs. What do you think has brought them back in 2023? And what advice would you have for most of them to start the year in force for 2024?
Well, actually, what I've noticed from the startup founders of 2023 is they cut back, they've extended their runway, And actually, the advice I would give is to think to continue to extend your runway. The market's not coming back in 2024. I don't think the A, B, C, those big C and D rounds, B, C, D rounds are not coming back for startups. And I think it's now, if you're in a position to sell, it's just go and sell, get business in the door, get cash flow in, if you're in that position.
Right. So on your side, what will be your top goals for next year? What will be your area of focus? Granted, all these trends, this advice that you would give to founders, what would be your top 3 goals for next year?
So top 3 goals for next year are finish the training program that we've got in development. That should be done by, the new training program should be done by February. So finish that, get it out, and prove that we've got, that we've hit the nail on the head there from a product market fit point of view. The second one is just do more sales, get more, at the moment we're selling like crazy, but double that, more calls, more outreach. We're doing a lot of dinners at the moment. So we're doing private dinners in the UK, and we're going to start doing them in the US for HR leaders. Do more of that, more sales, more of that. And I think for me, it's about also breaking away, giving myself time to walk, spend time with the kids, play on the beach, just break away, give yourself time.
Do you think large corporations are beneficial for humanity?
Nobody's ever asked me that question. For the most part, probably. Well, it depends. I mean, a large corporation like, a big medical business could be. A large mining conglomerate probably isn't. So it really depends. I think they in 20 or 30 years time, there will still be large corporations, but they will look different. There'll be more of the decentralized models. There'll be more humanity in the system. So broadly speaking, I would say probably not.
And I would agree with that. I would also agree with your point that, the shifting the future shifting will be somewhat drastic, and these orgs will not be what they are today. Not only are they slow moving, but I think one thing that I've been reflecting today and with the events at OpenAI is that wokeness have definitely infiltrated the corporate world. And nowadays it's more about political correctness than progress and saying things as they are and fetching a version of reality. I think that naturally, even if we don't fight against actively changing that, I do think it's going to change with AI. I do think the future corporation will be multiple freelancers and contracts being orchestrated by AI and blockchain, and just having an organization that can move very fast. Why does Google Sheets still has not advanced AI functions, and why can AI startups do these integrate Sheets and AI in the matter of 2 days, while 2 years after Google Sheets still has not got these features? And I mean, Google is the most agile of the big four. So I do think that, it's like, it's counter innovative as well. These big corporates, they're just big investment vehicles for people to get richer. They're not necessarily there to add to the end users value and add value to their lives. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we've allowed this, as human beings, we've allowed this to happen, and there's probably a change going to happen. But that being said, there will always be big organizations that dominate. So if OpenAI hadn't crashed, committed suicide over the weekend, OpenAI probably was going to be one of the next big companies. Just because if you take a leadership position in such an environment, you've got to have the people. Whether they would have grown to the extent, I don't know. But I think there will always be large organizations, and if you look at the way Microsoft are since Nadella's taken over, have become more agile and more adaptive. They will, their company like Oracle will get smaller over time, but over a long time, and then other companies will take their place. So I don't know. It's the more human we can make these corporations, the better, and that's what I think will happen. There will be more of a humanity to them, because that's what the Gen Z and the Millennials want.
I think Google is already dead. I don't think OpenAI is dead. Or about to be, like what happened this weekend probably slashed the company and 30%. I do think they're going to recuperate. I do think OpenAI signed a death warrant as soon as they accepted the check from Microsoft. I do think that Altman is going to form his own company, probably with Brockman. And I think that Ilya is going to found his own company eventually. So I do think that OpenAI will eventually extinguish, and they became a woke money machine as soon as they signed with Microsoft. But yeah, like I didn't expect that coup from happening that early. I also predicted some form of coup just by listening to Ilya and the dynamics, because Ilya is really smart as well. Probably even smarter than Altman, but obviously not business savvy with what he orchestrated last weekend. But yeah, it's funny because it's like this organization that's changing humanity and is at such high IQ level by definition, orchestrating probably the first form of AGI in humanity, and still they're being governed by a board of idiots, basically, and that fired one of the greatest founder and CEO of all times in a weekend, and thought they could get away with it. So it's just ironic, and then we talk about AI alignment with humans. I don't think we have a chance against AI, we're just too predictable and monkeyish in our thinking as humans, even when we fancy ourselves as scientists or academics or CEO and founders. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to have an opinion on AI and where AI and humans may or may not intersect. I've spoken to a bunch of AI people who say they're not worried about it. It's too much of a leap, but we'll see. The cat's out of the bag. So let's see where it goes. We can't stop it now.
Well, thank you so much, Brett, for coming on today. Where can people find out more about you?
Charles, really great to have joined you. Thanks for your time. It's been a great conversation. My company is called Culture Gene, culture, GENE.ai. And my email is brett@culturegene.ai.
And I'm Charles Cormier, your host. That was another CEO Wisdom Podcast.com with Bretton Potter.